Turn off those dang video games. I swear that Xbox was made by the devil himself. Have you ever heard somebody take a negative stand against video games? Chances are you just answered yes, and the honest truth is that there are some negative aspects of video game playing is not properly monitored. But have you ever thought that video game playing could have some positive effects? Have you ever thought that with more parental guidance that these positive aspects could far outweigh the negative ones? I have studied this problem with a little help from the Pew Internet Research website, and have organized this presentation in hopes of showing you that the positive outcomes of gaming far outweigh the negative ones, and that it's time for society to change their stance on video gaming. Video and computer games, like many popular entertaining and addictive kids' activities, are looked down upon by parents as time wasters, and even worse, parents think that these games rot their children's brains. Why is that, you may ask? Most of the bad effects of video games are blamed on the violence they contain. Children who play more violent video games are more likely to have increased aggressive thoughts, feelings, and behaviors. The effect of video game violence in kids is worsened by the game's interactive nature. In many games, kids are rewarded for being more violent, and the act of violence is done repeatedly. Also, when kids play games online, they can pick up bad language and behavior from other people, and this may make your child more vulnerable to other online dangers. Also, video games also encourage players to identify and role-play with their favorite characters. This is referred to as a first-person video game because players are able to make decisions affecting the actions of the character they are imitating. And with most of these games involving the violence, this can also be transitioned into interactions with their peers. Academic achievements may be negatively related to overall time spent playing video games. Studies have shown that the more time a child spends playing video games, the poorer their performance is in school. Now let's look at the other side of the argument and look at some of the positive aspects that video game playing can have. Video games that require children to be active, such as Dance Dance Revolution and Nintendo Wii Boxing, can be a good workout. When playing these games for 10 minutes, kids spend energy equal to or exceeding that produced by spending the same amount of time on a 3-mile-an-hour treadmill walk. In shooting games, the character may be running and shooting at the same time. This requires a real-world player to keep track of the position of the character, where they are heading, their speed, where the gun is aiming, if the gunfire is hitting the enemy, and so on. All these factors need to be taken into account, and then the player must then coordinate the brain's interpretation and reaction with the movement in their hands and fingertips. This process requires a great deal of hand-eye coordination and visual-spatial ability to be successful. Some of these games give the brain a real good workout. Games simulating stressful events such as those found in battle or action games could be a training tool for real-world situations. A study done in the Pew Internet Research website suggests that playing action video games primes the brain to make quick decisions. Video games increase a kid's self-confidence and self-esteem as they master the games. In many games, the levels of difficulty are adjustable. As a beginner, a kid begins at an easy level, and by constant practice and slowly building the skills, they become confident in handling more difficult challenges. Since the cost of failure is low, they don't fear making mistakes. They take more risks and explore more. Kids can transfer this attitude to real life. Also, games that involve multiple players encourage children to work cooperatively to achieve their goals. Kids learn to listen to the ideas of others, formulate plans with other kids, and distribute tasks based on skills. Some online games are even played internationally, and this can introduce kids to players of different nationalities and cultures. This fosters friendships among different people, which is of course a good thing. Violent video games may act as a release of pent-up aggression and frustration of your kids. When kids vent this frustration and anger in the game, this diffuses their stress. Games can provide a positive aggression outlet the same way that football and other activities do. Now, to prove the point that I just made on video games being a good stress reliever, let me introduce you to a boy named Jimmy and let you hear his story.
Hi, Cons 117. I'm about to tell you a story about a 16-year-old boy named Jimmy. You see, Jimmy has never had much luck go his way. He doesn't have many friends. He has never been on a date, and he is often the recipient of wet willies and wedgies from school bullies. However, with all that said, Jimmy does have something that he looks forward to every day after a stressful, tormented day at school. After Jimmy completes his homework, he turns on his Xbox and plays Call of Duty. Call of Duty is a first-person shooter that allows you to be a U.S. Marine. This is Jimmy's gaming setup in his room, and this is where he connects with his friends around the world. This is where Jimmy can escape all the wet willies and wedgies he gets at school, and is a place that he can transform into Jim. You see, Jim is a person who garners respect. This is a person that people are happy to see, as Jim is one of the best online Call of Duty players around. When Jim joins a game, he hears, "Hey Jim, thank goodness you're here, man. We've been getting our butts kicked." Jim replies, "Don't worry guys, everything's okay now. I won't let you down." After 4 games, Jim's mother calls for supper, and it's time to turn off the Xbox. It's also time to turn back into Jimmy. You see, Jimmy needs that hour or so that he feels wanted, respected, and looked up to. Nowhere else can Jimmy be involved in such elaborate teamwork activities, confidence-building exercises, and most importantly, friendship. This is Jimmy's way to escape your harsh reality with some healthy, fun, interactive gaming with his peers. It is Jimmy's way to find happiness.
Now, after you've heard Jimmy's story, let me move on to my next part of the presentation, and this is going to be the reason why most people feel that video games have such a negative aspect. And this is according to the Pew Internet Research website, and that is because parents' lack of guidance control. So, I did some research on there, and let me share with you a couple of main points that I found that could really help in curving society's opinion on video games. First, parents need to monitor video games that their children play the same way that you monitor television and other media. Although playing video games can be a very good learning experience, give your kid a variety of entertaining things to learn from, so the kid will not be addicted to just one thing. Monitor the effect of video games on your child and observe their behavior. Simply put, if the video game is having a negative effect and you notice it, take that video game away. Decide what is acceptable in your own home. If you don't think violent video games are acceptable, then explain to your child why that reason is and why it may be bad for them. Look for games that involve multiple players to encourage group play. Finally, as I conclude my presentation, let me leave you with this final thought. If video games promoted so many negative effects that many insist they do, then such games would not survive in the marketplace for very long. The audience for the games would become turned off and the sales would plummet. It's time that as a whole, society looks at the research that is out there and stops mimicking the majority's opinion. So the next time you hear somebody belittle the value of video games, pay them little attention because those statements are neither educated or based on factual evidence. Thank you for listening, and I hope you were able to take as much from this information as I was.